Hi guys, over the past few months I have been reviewing every single Howling movie, and I can't even tell you how pleased I am that that process is now over. All that remains is to do my franchise ranking just for the sake of posterity. We've got 8 films to get through today. I guess I will start at the bottom of the barrel and then work my way up to the next bit of the bottom of the barrel, and maybe eventually we'll get halfway up the barrel. Who knows, but we won't get it done just by sitting here rambling. So let's dive in and find out what is officially my 8th and least favourite Howling movie. At number 8 we have Howling New Moon Rising. This was the 7th of 8 films to come out. It's officially a comedy horror, but it's hardly got any horror in it, and the comedy is very minimal as well. There are a couple of funny moments in bars where people are telling jokes to each other, but for the most part there's nothing to enjoy in this movie. The guy who stars in it, the guy who's got the main role, he also directed it and edited it and wrote it. He was covering a lot of bases in this, but I can't see a point for this movie to exist other than so that this guy could tell his mates and his family that he made a movie and did all these things on it. I can't see any other point for this film to exist, honestly. It's absolutely abysmal. I'm just appalled that this film got made with the Howling name on it. At number 7 we have Howling 3, the Marsupials, or whatever that word is. This is another one that purports to be a horror comedy. At least it starts out that way. I think this film is going for a kind of Return of the Living Dead vibe in its first half, but it's not very good at doing that. And almost as if the film actually realises it, it changes tack halfway through and becomes this kind of Crocodile Dundee for werewolves drama film. And it gets that badly wrong as well. My abiding memory of this is watching a werewolf give birth in a really sticky, hairy sort of a way that just made me think, why am I watching this? This was only the 3rd Howling film. How they went from the quality of the first film to this in the space of just 2 movies, it just absolutely staggers me. At number 6 we have Howling Reborn. This was the 8th and final Howling film. This is the one that killed it off for good. The fact that this film managed to beat 2 other movies in this ranking is a stunning result, quite frankly, because this film deserves to beat no movies in any ranking. It's atrocious. It's a kind of Twilight knockoff. It's Howling's answer to Twilight. It came out at a time when that whole phase was a thing in movies and TV shows. So we've got 2 kids in school here. They fall in love with each other very, very quickly, it has to be said. There's a bunch of pantomime werewolves going after them, sometimes in the middle of their school, in the middle of the school day, and no one notices. And spoiler alert, by the end of the film, the 2 teens, their love has prevailed. They've killed the werewolves, and the girl has even become a werewolf so that they can both be werewolves together forever. Oh, you know, I didn't get away for a holiday this summer, but I did watch Howling Reborn on YouTube. Happy days. At number 5 we have Howling 4, the Original Nightmare. This is the first film today that isn't completely shit. So this is about a couple who move to a small hamlet, but it turns out that everybody who lives there is a werewolf. It's nothing you won't have seen before in terms of its story, but there are a few things about this film that are all right. There are some good dream sequences. The leading lady can act. There's at least one really good kill with good special effects. The big problem with this film as it stands right now is that it's just really unwatchable in terms of the formatting, because I don't think this film has been touched since the day it was released. It's got scratches and shit all over the screen, and it's boxed in a really naff way, and I could never get away from that when I was watching this. It was on my mind all the way through just how rotten it is to look at in terms of its formatting. If that ever gets cleaned up, then maybe this could become an alright kind of sequel in time, if you like werewolf movies, but even in those circumstances, it would never be anything beyond mediocre. At number 4, we have Howling 2, My Sister is a Werewolf. This one falls into the horror comedy category, although the horror side is the most dominant of the two, which I was certainly grateful for. We've got Christopher Lee in this one, which is a definite bonus for the film. A decent villainess. I mean, I don't think the woman who plays has got that much acting talent, but she's fun to watch. She dresses in a really camp way. I could do without her orgy scene, though. I mean, if you're going to have an orgy in a werewolf film, at least do it before the participants have transformed into werewolves. Otherwise, it's just not much fun to watch. But this film's all right. I really like the theme tune. I like the way that it's used throughout the movie. There are a few decent kills here and there. I just remember watching this feeling really sad that the overall quality had gone down a lot since the original film. But I am keen to give this one another go in the future, because I did buy a Blu-ray for it. I bought a Blu-ray Arrow version of this film back at a time when maybe I was thinking of buying all the films in the series. But I think after I'd watched this one, I think my faith in the franchise had diminished somewhat, and I knew that for the rest of them I was probably just going to find a way to rent them somewhere. At number 3, we have Howling 5, The Rebirth. Now, this is a good film, or at least I think it is, because it's kind of hard to tell with all the shit on the screen and the boxed format. Yeah, this is another one that's in a really terrible condition at the moment. It's screaming out for a remaster. As it stands, I found it tough to get through. Honestly, my eyes are sort of squinting at the screen. It's difficult, but I'm sure that there's a good film in there somewhere. It takes place in a castle. There's quite a bit of atmosphere in this. There's a good kind of whodunit kind of a vibe, or who's the werewolf, I should say. I like it in theory. I just don't have the means to properly enjoy it. It's a real shame. Out of all these films, Howling 4 and 5 are the two which really stand out as films waving the SOS flag. They just need a studio to come along and do something to them so that we can actually watch them in a proper format, because as it stands, it's very, very tricky. But if I try and put that stuff out of my mind and just judge the movie, then I would still rank this as better than Howling 2, a film which has had all that Arrow treatment, and it looks really amazing because of its Blu-ray and stuff. At number 2, we have Howling 6, The Freaks. We have finally arrived at the films in this franchise that I really like. Granted, there are only 2 of them, but hey-ho. So this was made back in the same sort of era as Howling 4 and 5, and yet the passage of time has been kinder to the print of this film. I didn't have any issues watching this, really, although you can still tell that it's never been remastered. At its heart, this is about a werewolf going up against a vampire in a kind of freak show, small town setting, but it's a really engrossing story. I really like the film. The villain is superb. The final girl's pretty good as well. There are some really good kills and scenes full of tension. The freak show circus stuff looks really good in this. They've clearly put some effort in. I enjoyed this film as a teen when they put it on TV, and I enjoyed it again a couple of months ago when I caught up for the film for the first time in decades. I'd quite like to get a DVD of this, even if there were no whistles and bells on it and they hadn't touched it up. But there can only be one Howling film in the top spot. Of course there can. So let's now confirm what that is for me. Yeah, at number 1, we have the original Howling. There are a lot of people for whom this is the only Howling film they would ever bother with, and I can't argue with that. I'm not even sure that this original film is that highly regarded. I mean, I suspect that it's probably well respected among most people who've seen it, but I don't think it's considered a big masterpiece film like Halloween, The Thing, or The Exorcist. It's not quite in that category, you know. I just think it's not even considered better than American Werewolf in London, is it, that came out the same year. But I've always had a soft spot for it. I saw it for the first time when I was a teenager, and I'm pretty sure I've seen it like 6 or 7 times now. I do go back to it periodically. I like the structure of the story. It's a weird one, this, in terms of where all the characters come and go in the narrative, and subsequently I can never remember what scene's coming next in this film, which is definitely a plus for it when it comes to rewatches. But the film's got so many things going for it. The werewolf transformation is brilliant. The music actually gets me a little bit emotional in this film, and the lead actress, whose name for some reason has completely escaped me, she's really good. She's been in so much stuff. So yeah, never a doubt in my mind when I started this whole venture that this film would be the best in this franchise, and so it has come to pass. Right, that's the end of my Howling series. I've reviewed all the films, I've done the ranking. It's now time for me to move on. I think I am going to do the Hills Have Eyes films next. I've just got a real hankering to do that, and I believe there are 4 of them, so not as many as there are with the Howling, but we might just get a little bit better quality control throughout the Hills Have Eyes movies, if my memory serves me correctly, but that's for another day. But for now, thank you for joining me. Until next time, ow!